Facebook Live. Let's see if anybody's up late. Maybe it gets some people across the water. Just got back from a talk. Hi, Jillian. Just got back from a talk in my hometown here. It was kind of interesting. I thought I would go on Facebook, give a little debriefing. Is my sound working, Jillian? Can you hear me? I never know if my sound is working. I need a new chair. My chair is totally falling apart. Hi, Jillian. Does that mean you can hear me, Jillian? Yes? Okay, good. So yes, did a talk in my hometown here in Abbotsford tonight. It was kind of interesting. I wasn't feeling that great tonight for the start of the event, so I was kind of off for the whole event. But I was, there were more protesters than I thought would be there tonight. I don't know how many there were, I didn't count them. I was surprised to see protesters wearing face masks again, bandanas and stuff, obscuring their identities. This whole thing is getting a little, annoying to me, okay, because these protesters are showing up now, and when you've got mass protesters in front of an event, they're actually scaring people away, okay, and we have actual accounts tonight of people who were coming, who were either blocked from going into the event or saw these mass protesters out front and decided just to go away. So these protesters are intimidating people into not attending my events. Hi, Jennifer. And so it's frustrating for me because I got it, like it's coming at me from every angle from the establishment. Okay, so I've got the mainstream media and the newspapers demonizing me, misrepresenting who I am. So they're falsely representing me as some sort of hater in the press. When I try to advertise on Facebook, I have nothing but troubles trying to advertise on Facebook. I have to find sort of creative methods to be able to advertise on Facebook. And even then, I believe I'm being throttled, so my message is being limited in that regard. The local newspaper, despite the fact that I've sort of been in the press quite a bit recently and was involved in the whole UBC thing and the Pride Parade fiasco, local newspaper not only will not cover the event as an item of interest, it'd rather cover stories about lost dogs and stuff, but they prevent me from advertising, so I'm not allowed to advertise. So the paper has stopped that. So public venues don't want to rent to me. Papers won't talk about me. They won't let me advertise. And then we get these protesters who show up and try to be as intimidating as possible. So they're wearing the face masks and everything, and they're blocking people's way, and they're yelling and they're screaming and trying to scare people away. It's a very sort of difficult thing for me to be able to work against. Like, I can take some of the stuff from the protesters there on site when they're yelling at me and calling me names and you know, laughing at me and making veiled threats and stuff like that. I can sort of take all of that, but when you put it all together, it can actually get some, it gets exhausting at times. I was telling Tina that I was chatting with earlier that I get exhausted sometimes, and that's because, like I say, when you get all of this stuff sort of coming at you, sort of working against you, it requires well, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but it requires kind of a internal resolve and strength to keep sort of pushing through. I've been doing this going on towards 3 years now, and it's been like a year after year story of plugging away. right? Working against sort of all odds to try to get the message out there. And it doesn't get easier, right? This new trend, though, for these protesters to show up with these bandanas and stuff and try to be as intimidating as possible. Like, they don't intimidate me, right? But what they do intimidate is they intimidate the people who are trying to come to my events, right? So they'll drive up, they'll see all of this, they'll drive away, right? Some of them try to pull into the parking area and are blocked by these people, right? And then for those who get out of the car, they're intimidating them and yelling them. So I had one older woman who came in tonight who was visibly flustered and upset because of the way these protesters treated her entering the building. Sort of a, you know, an older woman, just curious about what the information is. And they traumatized her. I mean, she came in and she was visibly traumatized, right? I wanted to go outside and give the protesters a piece of my mind. But this is sort of the stuff that you have to deal with in this struggle. But it's an exercise in perpetual and unending resolve to just sort of keep pushing through. I mean, I've come a long way over 3 years from being sort of unknown in Canada to being, you know, having Prime Minister Trudeau talking about me, right? So it's been a long road, but it's been a hard road, and it's all about you know, I was talking to Chris, who co-sponsors a lot of my events, and I was talking to him tonight, and I said that, you know, even though a lot of people were scared away from my talk tonight, and we had such problems with advertising and stuff, you can't stop, right? We can't stop. We have to keep going no matter what. It's going to be a resolve test. So like, I got pretty good staying power, I think, and we'll see who has more resolve in the long end or in the long run, right? But it is really trying at points. At least my hair behaved. I think my hair still's got pretty good style. So at least I had a good hair day. Wish I had a good hair day when I did those TV interviews recently. Let's see what people are saying here. I can talk a bit about Yaniv too, because some of my views on Yaniv I know are kind of controversial. Tina says it's a lot of toxic energy to absorb. It is, and it has a toll on you. But this is the period in history that we've entered, right? So we talk about all of this negativity and the struggle and trying to push through. This is where we are in history, right? So I was really off my sort of presentation game tonight for various factors. But one of the things that I was trying to talk to them is that we're in a very bad place in history where the entire establishment can sort of misrepresent and frame somebody who's just trying to advocate for positive change, and the whole system can sort of misrepresent somebody, and that is just it's a powerful force to have to deal with. But they have control of the media, they have control of the papers, the radios, the TV stations, and I've seen that in my interactions with the media. There is a control. Okay, whether it's overt control telling reporters and stuff what to do, or whether it's they're just, like Noam Chomsky used to say, they hire people who think correctly so they don't have to be told what to do. You know, and it's probably a combination of those things. But any way you spell it, they have essential effective control of radio, newspaper, televisions, all of this stuff. They control, and they can all sort of gang up and totally misrepresent somebody and demonize them. And that's why you see this big push that's going on right now against social media, is because this is, as I said tonight in the presentation, this is probably the greatest device in terms of promoting freedom and empowering the average person, because it allows people to come together and talk honestly amongst themselves without the control of the mainstream media spinning everything. So we can talk among ourselves, we can organize, we can do all of this stuff. This is an enormously powerful tool, and it enables the people to break free from the absolute control that now is currently enjoyed by the mainstream media. And that's why you see the entire establishment cracking down on it. Like, I don't want to upset my people who follow the People's Party of Canada, but Maxime Bernier, who's supposed to be this champion of freedom, he signed on to the Democracy Under Threat Committee and its recommendations, which were all about censoring social media. There is not a leader in Canada right now who is not behind censorship on social media. And that's because they've got their control matrix, right? They have absolute control except for social media and the internet. And that bothers the hell out of them. And so they're going after it, and they're going to try to crack it down and lock it down, right? So it becomes part of this control matrix. And they need things like the whole transgender identity thing as a weapon to justify it, right? So, you know, it was an interesting night. I mean, just the, like, sort of the frustration that, you know, I have so much trouble advertising and trying to attract people in the first place. And then you got these nuts showing up with their bandanas and stuff and trying to be as intimidating as possible. Meanwhile, all of them claiming to be the love and inclusion crowd, right? Well, love and inclusion doesn't wear face masks and bandanas and torment and intimidate little old ladies. Like, what kind of people are these love and inclusion people? So, yeah, I got a little put off tonight, and as I was saying to Tina, it gets exhausting sometimes. Yeah, so Tina says they're the only ones inciting fear and hatred of me, and that's true. So they come in, I can tell you, like, really quick, in a very brief nutshell, the most controversial things that are in my presentation. So the most controversial things that I do is I say a man can't be a woman. Okay, so that's just out there. The other thing is the pronouns. I believe that pronouns are sex related. So he, him, these refer to males. And when we're talking about a male, those are the correct pronouns to use. And I don't do it to be mean. I do it for the sake of order. Okay, so when I first got involved in this struggle 2-3 years ago now, one of the first things I encountered is when I was engaging with the other side and debating with the other side, because you can't see them on social media. So basically the typed word, right? It became quite apparent to me that it was virtually impossible to determine who were the males and who were the females, with the what I would call the loving exception of the hardcore radical feminists, right, who you knew, okay, these are females. So they stood out. But beyond that, it was like very difficult to be able to determine whether or not you were talking to a male or a female. And that is against order. Okay, so linguistically speaking, keeping these pronouns attached to biological sex is important for linguistic order. If you start applying, so if you start saying she or her about me, that's breaking down the clarity in our language and leading to linguistic chaos. So that's the reason why I try to get these pronouns straight. Okay, so that's the other sort of controversial thing that I do. Okay, man is not a woman. Let's get these pronouns straight. And the other thing is that I talk about mental health issues in the transgender community. Well, that takes us to Jessica Yaniv, who I happen to have information that the average person doesn't have on Jessica Yaniv. Jessica Yaniv is, in my opinion, somebody with mental health issues. And this is a problem in the transgender community, and it's been well documented. And they would tell you that me discussing this is promoting hatred. So OJ says that I'm pathologizing transgender community. No, I'm not pathologizing the transgender community. I'm talking about something real and something important. So those are really the three things that people can point to. other than maybe saying, well, I'm against Soji. So if you're against Soji, you're against the LGBTQ community and you want hatred. But that's like a complete pole vaulting logic from one conclusion to a radical conclusion without any sort of sensible middle ground there. To oppose a government policy is not to promote hatred. Saying a man is not a woman is not hatred. Wanting to keep our language straight is not hatred. But these are the things that they use against me. And it's a long, unending struggle. So they were out there tonight, and they were, I don't know, making comments about tampering with my car and calling me a cross-dresser and all this stuff. I mean, it's not new to me, right? So it's not something that's new to me, but I think because it was in my own hometown and because I've had such struggles recently, it sort of kind of got to me more than usual. Farrah hair. It's my 1980s Farrah hair. It's not quite long enough to be Farrah hair, but at least it didn't go frizzy on me tonight, despite the fact it was hot. Seems to have held my curls pretty good. Did I have a good question and answer period, Paul is asking? Fairly good. It wasn't a big crowd though. Okay, so we had lots of things working against us. We weren't able to advertise like we were usually able to advertise. And all of the throttling and all of the demonization and the mob. So the crowd wasn't that big, so there weren't that many people to be talking to. Axel was there, who's one of my friends on Facebook, and he's got a new sort of social media YouTube channel. So it was interesting to meet him in person. I keep meeting all of these interesting people in this journey. But it wasn't that big of a crowd, so there weren't that many questions, but there were some interesting questions and a lot of people who sort of appreciate what I'm doing. Paul says he went to the drag queen story time in Oak Bay. Did any of the drag queens have beards? Yeah, inclusion as long as you agree with us. And that's just it with the love and inclusion crowd. Like, I don't know if these people ever look in the mirror, okay, or stop to listen to like some of the things that they're saying to me, or look within themselves as to what it means. Like, I've never done something like that. So I would never go to one of Morgane Auger's events and harass people that were coming in. I would never try to intimidate any old ladies who might be going in to listen to Morgane Auger. I would never do that. And so I wonder if these people ever sort of look at what they say and look at what they do and sort of try to make sense of that in terms of, you know, we're the love and inclusion crowd, right? For me, all I can do is sort of keep plugging away and trying to push through it, and hopefully, you know, just sort of keep hoping that somewhere down the line that there's going to be a payoff, right? And people will look back and say, you know, maybe Jenn was right all along. We got a bit of that with the Yaniv case, right? So we were sort of warning about what Yaniv now represents and that this would manifest. So there was a little bit of, you know, a positive spell for me, but they've kind of switched back quite quickly to demonizing me. I'm just reading the comments. Ogre's crew are all brainwashed. Okay, so Auger's crew are all brainwashed. You look at some of the pictures on Morgane Auger's Twitter, for instance, and look at the people that are surrounding him, okay? Look at some of the people, let's say, of the Oak Bay, who are in the crowd there, who are protesting me, okay? These are people who are, for the most part, what I would call vulnerable social outcasts. Okay, I used to be one of them, so I can recognize them, right? And I'm not saying that to be mean to them, is that that's what I see. And most people who look at that, honestly, they see that too. So Auger surrounds himself with these vulnerable people and uses them, Okay, so when all of these sort of social outcasts show up to my events and protest me, they're being used. Okay, so while I find it frustrating sometimes, like with some of them, it's difficult for me to get angry at them because many of them are victims, right? So Tina says Ogre's crowd are brainwashed, and that's right. Well, you know, what is the solution to unbrainwashing these people? Well, for me, I think it's just about continuing to push through, right? Keep on talking to the love and inclusion crowd out there and saying, listen, guys, like one day you're going to sort of maybe wake up and realize or start getting sort of a sense within yourself somewhere that I'm not the bad guy that OJ and others are painting me out to be. Okay, I'm not the enemy. I'm actually, I know, probably one of your best friends because I'm out there all the time repairing the image of the transgender community in my own way. Okay, so there's all these people who are pissed off at the transgender community. They get exposed to me and they go, okay, so not everybody is, you know, demanding I surrender reality. Not everybody in the transgender community is, you know, aggressively against what I believe in. So I'm actually helping them in many ways. But you know, in terms of deprogramming people, right? You know, I don't know what the term was in brainwashing. They used to have these facilities where they would take cult members and they would deprogram them, basically. For me, all I can do is just sort of keep talking and hoping that along the line, some of these people will start cluing in to what I'm saying and maybe waking up and maybe coming over to the camp of reality and realize that when I'm talking about reality, it's not a bad thing. Yeah, Deidre says it's got to be frustrating, you know, not being able to get the message across. It's frustrating that I've got to break through all of the, for lack of a better term, bullshit, right? I've got to break through that. Like they wrap me up in a, you know, a straight jacket of lies and misrepresentation and intimidation of anybody who might come out to see me. And I've got to continually try to break through that. So it can be a struggle, to put it mildly. How many showed up? I don't know. I don't know. I didn't do a count. It was not a big crowd. There was less than I was expecting. But again, the problems with advertising and the fact that the building was surrounded by these people wearing bandanas and face masks and stuff, none of that helps. So I don't sort of judge the success of a meeting by the number of people. So I've talked to crowds as big as 300 people before. I've talked to crowds as small as a dozen, right? But I don't sort of measure my success on how many people show up to an individual event, because sometimes you talk to one or two people and those one or two people can make a huge difference in what you're trying to do. So that's not how I measure whether an event's a success or not. But I will admit that it's frustrating when you can't advertise properly and you've got so many hurdles to get over to get the message out there. So Jennifer says, Yanov was an eye-opener for a lot of complacent people. Yeah, that's the thing about Yanov, and that's what I tried to say to the TV camera crews outside the hearing when I was there the one day, is that, okay, so yeah, what Yanov is doing is bad, and we feel bad for the women who are being subjected to this, but Yanov is, in my opinion, somebody with mental health problems who's been programmed by people like Morgan Auger to think that what he is doing is his right, okay? I think the point, like I wasn't sure what to make of Yanov entirely until I saw the Mark Hughes interview. And when I sat and watched Mark Hughes just, you know, mocking Yanov for half an hour, just relentlessly mocking Yanov and sort of gauging Yanov's reaction, going, okay, so Yanov does not seem to be cluing into the fact here that he's being mocked. right? And this went on and on and on. And that was when I came to the conclusion, okay, this, all the trains aren't running to the station in Yanov's head. And since then, I've gotten other information about Yanov that sort of confirm my theory about him. So when I say that people who are beating the hell out of Yanov, that I don't think that that's the best route to go, it's because that's what I believe. Okay, so I believe that he is in many ways like the people that Ogre surrounds himself with, these sort of social outcasts who've had these problems and they've been brainwashed into the system. The problem is not Yanov so much as it is the system that Yanov is exploiting, and that same system that sort of conditioned his brain into thinking that it was his right to be a woman and it was his right to be treated as a woman. Okay, Yanov is an ongoing sort of issue for me. I tried not to get caught up in all the tabloid stuff. But again, I will say that I see Yanov as a mentally ill person. He needs to be stopped in what he's doing. I'll agree to that. But I'm not going to take part in a vicious, like trying to tear Yanov apart viciously. Right? I want him to stop. And I want him to get the psychological help that he needs. I don't want to destroy him. And I know that some people do want to destroy him. But that's not... I don't even want to destroy OJ. I want to expose OJ. I want OJ to stop doing what he's doing. Now, OJ is kind of a special case because we can't seem to get him to answer any questions regarding whether or not OJ has signed national security agreements, right? Because I had some tips come to me from some people in Chicago, and I'd already suspected this about OJ, where I came to the conclusion that OJ was probably an intelligence asset for somebody spinning information, because some of the stuff he said was just too idiotic to be real, right? Like, how could anyone be saying things that are so idiotic? Who claims to be a thoughtful person, especially somebody in OJ's position as vice president of the ruling party in British Columbia, okay? You can't be in that position without showing some degree of intelligence. And when he says things that are so patently absurd and ridiculous, then you got to, okay, so what's this guy up to? So when I got these reports out of Chicago suggesting that Yanov was recruited by the Central Intelligence Agency and was actually working for intelligence, that made sense to me. So I've had some allies asking this question, and now OJ has been asked 6 times now if he's ever signed any national security agreements in relation to intelligence, right? 6 times OJ's been asked that directly, and OJ refuses to answer the question. Right? He will talk about anything but answer the question, right? That's what I call the Glomar response. So people who have studied intelligence will know what the Glomar response is. This is this thing where agents in the field and representatives of intelligence projects frequently are not allowed to confirm or deny what they're doing, particularly to their own citizens of their own country. So the Glomar response is to neither confirm nor deny, right? So if you're dealing with an intelligence agent, that person is not going to be allowed to say they are an intelligence agent, and they're not going to deny it either. So you'll get them into what I call a Glomar loop, where they will say anything, or they'll carefully craft the responses that in ways that make it look like they're answering, but they're not really answering. So that's the Glomar loop, where they keep avoiding, and that's what we seem to have OJ in right now. Whether or not OJ is, working with an intelligence agency to spin public perceptions or not, is like, I don't know. This is what we're trying to get at right now by asking OJ these questions, but OJ refuses to answer. Like, if somebody came to me, for instance, and said, okay, we think you're an intelligence asset, and we think you've got some sort of intelligence thing going on, and they said, have you ever signed a national security agreement? I wouldn't go on these endless loops avoiding answering the question. I would just say no, because that puts it to rest and puts it out there, right? That's what I would do, but OJ doesn't seem to want to do that. Maybe OJ is just sort of messing with people. I don't know. But I treat OJ differently than I treat Yanov. Yanov I see as a brainwashed, I don't know that I want to say victim, because what he's doing to these women is so terrible, but he's part of the cult, right? And his brain has been conditioned, and he had a proclivity, a pre-existing proclivity to fall victim to something like this, I would say. And I would say he's also seems to be part of a culture, like a family culture of exploiting and conning and stuff. So I think you put those two things together and you get what you see in Yaniv. None of it, again, is designed to defend Yaniv. I don't want to do that. I just want to, like in a pre-sentence report, a judge will try to figure out as much as he can about the person, to look for any sort of mitigating factors that might affect his ruling in terms of how do we penalize this person? How do we deal with this person? Is this person nuts? Does this person need to be locked up in an insane asylum? Does this person come from a troubled family background, in foster care or whatever, that type of thing? You take into all of these factors in a good judgment to try to figure out what's going to be the best ruling on this person. And that's my approach to Yaniv. Is like, okay, so Yaniv seems to have significant strikes against him in his background, physical strikes, biological strikes, and social strikes that sort of made Yaniv what Yaniv is today, that everybody sort of despises so much. But I'm trying to be as balanced as possible in this. And as usual with me, I always end up pissing people off by trying to, like, I don't play games, right? I will tell people what I think on these issues, and I will tell them honestly, even if I think it's going to upset even the majority of my followers, because I try to speak as honestly as I can all the time. Yaniv is a problem, but the bigger problem is the system, right? And I worry that people are really distracted on Yaniv himself as an individual. Some people are behaving like if we can just destroy Yaniv, that will, solve the problem. It won't solve the problem. Oh, hi, Miranda. Hi, Susan. Yeah, it's okay. I had an off night tonight because I started, actually I was feeling a little sick at the start of the meeting. I'm not sure exactly why. So I had kind of an off night, but the other sort of surrounding factors were even more annoying. See all these clowns, in their bandanas and face masks and stuff. I don't know if we got any video footage of that. We didn't have cameras like we did at UBC, but it gets a little annoying. Paul asked if any of the protesters came inside to hear you speak. I don't know if anyone in the audience was one of the protesters. If we see protesters trying to come in at the door, I have a policy of not letting them. I don't want protesters in my audience because whereas we used to allow them previously, if we go back a year or so ago, we were allowing protesters to come in. I don't do that anymore because they almost always cause disruptions and problems, right? So I've got a long presentation in the neighborhood of 2 hours. It's an intensive presentation that's designed to make things crystal clear to people. So it takes 2 hours. And if you get people in there constantly interrupting, it can take a long time. And I just don't have the time for that. I don't have the patience for that. It's not beneficial to the people who are coming out to hear me and hear the information, to allow people in who are going to cause disruptions, right? So we actively try to filter protesters and not allow them in. Now, if they were to come to the event not as a protester, anybody can come in as long as they are going to be respectful and listen and be respectful of the other people in the room. I don't care. I'm not afraid of that, right? I'm not afraid of people critiquing my presentation. When I did the tour on the island, probably one of the big problems is that I was letting all these protesters come in, and during the question and answer period, they could come up and question me. Now, some of them wanted to spend a half hour questioning me. That's not going to happen, but I let them question me on things. So I'm not afraid of defending my thesis to anybody, really. Was hoping at UBC, maybe some hotshot professors there might come and try to, expose me for the fraud that I am, but none did. But I don't want people who are going to cause problems. Purchase a billboard, Deandra says. That's an idea. Somebody else gave me an idea. Oh, that we might actually try radio for the next one. I'm working on different venues to do talks around the Lower Mainland right now. Probably the next one is going to be in Chilliwack, which is SOGI 123 Central in BC. It's been sort of the center where all the debate on this has gone on. I'm fairly well known. I'm probably better known in Chilliwack than I am in Abbotsford because my activities in Chilliwack with the school board there got a lot of media attention. And you add all this other media attention, I'm pretty well known in Chilliwack. So that'll probably be the next place where I do a talk. We'll see. Yeah, Susan says it's not about the number of people who show up. That's true. Okay, so if we get 30 or 40 people, okay, and only 5 to 10 of them get it, that's 5 to 10 people who now get it who didn't previously get it. So if I just keep going and going and going, these numbers will keep adding up. And it's a measurable change. So in the last municipal election, we still had Rob Fleming and company saying that people who opposed SOGI 123 in British Columbia, it was this tiny number, barely measurable, right? But then when the municipal election actually went through and we had the school board trustees, what we found out was that 128,000 people in BC knowingly supported openly anti-SOGI 123 trustee candidates, 128,000. I like to think that my activities provincially have contributed to that number. But that number there, too, again, was brought about as a result of just sticking to it, right? And even though you can have things like happen to me tonight, which is sort of discouraging, you got to just put that aside, not worry about that, and just keep going, right? The only guaranteed loss is if you give up, right? So I have no intention of giving up. And one of the reasons for that is because what I'm doing and what I'm speaking about is the right thing to do, right? Surrendering truth is not, as I say in my presentation, it's not a trifle, okay? A man is not a woman, and that is true, okay? If we surrender this battle, we won't be able to win anything, okay? This battle has to be won, okay? This is a truth that has to be identified and defended aggressively, right? And if that means I have to do it 10, 20 people at a time, I'll do that. And I'll just keep on going, I hope. But like I say, it gets emotionally exhausting at points. I mean, and who really likes to be mischaracterized, right? Who likes to be constantly called a demon all the time, right? And people constantly saying that you're a Nazi, right? Who likes that? Nobody. Not me. I don't like it. But the truth is more important than my feelings on the matter. Yeah, so the thing about Yana being bullied. I'm not going to bully people, right? Particularly people who I think are psychologically disturbed. I will go after Morgane Auger aggressively and try to expose Morgane because I put Morgane in a different category than I do Yaniv. Yaniv, in his own twisted way, and unfortunately at the expense of these women, has helped our side enormously. And that's why some people on the other side have suggested that maybe Yaniv is a secret agent of some sort for our side. I've got no evidence to support that idea. And when I was in the tribunal, listening to Yaniv, the philosophy and the words that were coming out of Yaniv's mouth were exactly the same type of nonsense that you hear coming from Morgana Ogier. Exactly. Okay, so Ogier wants to say that Yaniv is different, right? I don't support Yaniv, and Yaniv is this, nothing to do with me and what I'm trying to do. But the words that came out of Yaniv's mouth at that hearing were completely consistent with Ogre's statements and philosophy in every way. Like in every way, like everything he was saying was consistent with Ogre's comments. And Deidre was talking about Yaniv's mother. Yeah, so the fruit doesn't fall very far from the tree. And if you sort of had any interactions with Yaniv's mother, as I had, like a personal interaction with Yaniv's mother at the hearing there, there's something hereditary going on there. And we know that mental health troubles tend to be like you can be passed on from one generation to another. So I think there's something biological going on there. Hi, Annette. Thanks, Annette. I had a good hair day. That's the only thing I can say today is I had a good hair day. I was able to, I had a hair strategy this time. I was hell-bent on not having my hair go fuzzy on me. It seems to have worked pretty well. I'll have to use it more in the future. The video of Yaniv beating up on the journalist. Well, there's a whole backstory to what happened there. There's going to be information coming out on Yaniv in the next little while that might change people's perceptions on what's going on. Again, I do want people to be clear that I'm not defending Yaniv or what Yaniv says, only that there are mitigating factors to be considered. Tina says, don't let the bastards get you down. Sounds like Winston Churchill. Something Churchill would say. I get down. So I've told people that I've taken an emotional beating in this. But it goes with the territory. Yeah, and it says that Yaniv is an easy target and gets most of the attention. Precisely, right? So Yaniv is like a bull in a china shop, sort of raging around, causing all this trouble. But the real brains behind this is Ogier, right? And Ogier is not getting really attacked at all in this. Oh, yeah, Susan, make a little joke about the air freshener. Yeah, that's actually was a true story. It wasn't an intentional joke. It was actually a real joke. So I don't, like, I have real blurry vision when I don't have my glasses on. So unfortunately, I store the air freshener and the hairspray both in cans in the same spot in my washroom. But I'd taken my glasses off out here and went to get the hairspray because I don't spray with my glasses on, or it ends up all over my glasses. And I grabbed the spray and I went out and I put the spray in my hair and I went, what's that smell? It smells awful apple cinnamony. And then I realized that I had grabbed the wrong can and I was spraying air freshener into my hair. But hey, maybe I found a secret way of controlling my hair. Maybe that's why my hair stayed good throughout the whole night. But yeah, a little funny there. Grind, yeah. give an example of the most outrageous thing OJ has said. Well, OJ has said so many outrageous things. I mean, his statement about how he is female and the mother of two, and that there is no such thing as a, what do you call it? It was a mythological, biological female. Like a biological female was some sort of myth. Like, are you out of your mind, or are you something else, right? The address says, remember to take care of yourself. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so it doesn't work that way. So I've got an obsessive compulsive personality that some people find frustrating when dealing with me. So I get locked in things, and I can't sort of pull myself away. I mean, it's sort of good and useful in terms of what I've been able to achieve so far in this struggle, because I am sort of obsessive compulsive, and I don't back down. And that's part of, I think, when I got into this struggle, and I've told this story before, when I made the decision to get in to this debate, I remember the exact moment, right? There was like a voice in the back of my head that said that this is your battle, right? This is something that you have to do. So there was that. But at the same time, there was sort of a realization within myself that because of my nature and the nature of this struggle, that it might ultimately be the end of me. But some things are bigger than individuals. So I've said all along, what I'm doing here is more important than me and what may or may not happen to me in the long run. This is really important, okay, because there's something very insidious going on, and somebody has to stand up against it. And I had this discussion with Chris tonight, who sort of pointed out, like, what if I hadn't been active on this issue over the last 2 or 3 years? OJ would have, been almost free reign, because Carrie Simpson is another sort of primary actor here, but she's not as busy as I am on this issue. So it's been good in the sense that I've been here all along, providing needed opposition to OJ. Yeah, thank you for what you do, says Tina. I've said before, I don't really need thanks. I'm sort of my wiring at this stage is that it's the right thing to do, and it has to be done. And I trust myself, right, to do the right thing. And to sort of make an attempt to pull myself out of it, I think would be a betrayal of what I believe and what I stand for. So I keep on doing it. Susan says, don't lose sight of how many people support you. Yeah, it does get challenging. Unfortunately, there's people like Susan out there who have been willing to chip in. It's important to have support, and I do have a small network of people who assist me, because if I had to do everything by myself, it would get overwhelming. But I would say that I still don't have as much support as would be beneficial to keep doing this. But I appreciate the people who do chip in. The address says, don't let it be detrimental to your health. It is what it is, right? And I am what I am. Yeah, So between it is what it is and I am what I am, it all is what it is, right? And it's going to play out the way it does. Saying take care of your health is not it's just not the way I'm wired, right? I can't sort of do that. Hi, Annette. Yeah, it's kind of late. I don't usually go live at this hour, but the event and the wrap-up of the event went so long, and I still thought I would come on and talk about it and sort of the frustration of dealing with these masked nuts who claim to be about love and inclusion. And that should be like a red flag to people, right? It's difficult to deal with a society that doesn't see this stuff, right? But yeah, keep on plugging away. Let's see, was there anything else I was going to talk about? Not really. Just the YAMF thing. Strange stuff going on here outside my building at 1 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, yes, Chris McKay and I went to Boston Pizza afterwards to have a bite to eat and sort of discuss things. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for the support. I am going to end my live video now, and I will chat with you all again later. Bye.